Oh. Well, hello there, little shadow-dropped lore child. Is it time for a quick theory before the next patch? Well, it better be, because I think I might know who this girl is, but what I don't know is her relationship to the story and the other characters. But I do have some theories. This little girl is most likely Princess Marcotte, and if you haven't heard of her, it's probably because you haven't read Fremonet's character stories, but don't worry, I got you. Fremonet loves fairy tales, especially the ones from the Tales of the Snow-Winged Goose, which is probably a Mother Goose reference, and one of those stories is about Princess Marcotte, a girl with long pink hair described as a seed who rode across the ocean on the claws of a crab. The first thing to jump out are the crab claws, because this little girl is related to Arlecchino somehow. I mean, she's on the web preview page, and Arlecchino has crab legs on her back. But these things have been called so many different things, like the top three I've seen are spider legs, crab legs, and bone wings. And they could be all three, really, but let's just go with crab for now. Now, a very dedicated soul dove into the website's HTML and found out that Marcotte here is named Kalewe, which is a phonetic way to say Creerwe in Chinese. Now, Creerwe is the daughter of Caerdwyn, a Celtic goddess of rebirth, and as you may know from my Arlecchino speculative analysis video, I am all about Arlecchino and rebirth symbolism. So in the special program, it was implied that Fremonet was hiding someone and that father would be angry if she found out. Now, it's possible that Fremonet is hiding Marcotte, potentially in Poisson, because the art kinda looks like Poisson, which, yes, would imply that she is a real girl, and given the mythological inspirations, Arlecchino and Marcotte may have a mother-daughter relationship. Or maybe I should say daughter-mother. So I'm also very much invested in the Vampire Arlecchino agenda. I wrote about 2,000 words that I later removed from my speculative analysis video, and I'm absolutely kicking myself for it now. I mean, she's got blood debt directives, bond of life, all the blood-coated attacks in her boss fight. Like, even her little red flamey throne chair is similar to the blood clots inside of Elenis. And it doesn't help that Arlecchino's pose while on her chair is so very close to the princess from the Battle Pass minus the goblet, but goblets are generally used for wine, and wine is generally a symbolic stand-in for blood in all kinds of rituals like the Eucharist, which I have a whole video about, so she is not beating those blood-drinking allegations. Now, while it is not a trope found in early vampire mythology, later interpretations of vampires can turn people into their servants. They're usually referred to as thralls and provide blood to a vampire in exchange for power and longevity. Now, a subset of this archetype can be found in the sanguinarian interpretation of vampirism, wherein blood donors are called swans and potential donors are called black swans. This matters because Arlecchino's outfit is very swan-like. There's wings in her hair, feathers in her wrist cuffs, and their hands are blackened like swan legs, and okay, that last one is a little bit of a stretch, but I'm definitely not the only person with the swan allegations against her. Laughing Man has a great analysis of this that you can check out later if you want to learn more. But if Arlecchino is the swan, then she's not the main vampire. She's the thrall, the servant, which coincidentally is her harbinger name. She's called the knave in English, which can refer to a vagrant, a jack of a deck of playing cards, or a male domestic worker, like the servant of a house, which is probably the intended meaning here because her title in Chinese is just straight up servant. So my theory is that Arlecchino is Marcotte's blood servant, her swan. Think about it. Chitose says that several years ago, a serious clash appears to have occurred between the previous knave and a certain child at the House of the Hearth. This led to the latter replacing the former. Now, I've always interpreted this passage as Arlecchino as a kid having an altercation with the previous knave, and then killing the previous knave and taking their position. But what if we read this a little bit differently? What if the previous knave had a falling out with their vampire, Marcotte? So Marcotte replaced her servant with a new servant, our current Arlecchino. This would suggest that the servants are easily replaceable, each one taking the position of a harbinger, while the true master of the harbinger never changes, but instead stays behind the scenes. I mean, no princess goes out and does her own dirty work. It would make sense for her to have a servant to go out and do her bidding. And this idea works a little bit better with Arlecchino's memory of the night that she became a harbinger, because there's no reference of a conflict between her and the previous knave there. And this whole process is hinted at again in Marcotte's name. The word Marcotte is a French term for a process called layering. Basically, a branch of a plant, usually one with woody stems, is taken and then forced to grow new roots, usually while still attached to the parent plant. And once it's been established, the connection is cut off. For example, the branch of a tree can be bent and partially buried in the ground. The buried segment will then grow roots and establish itself as a new tree. So in this example, Marcotte is the original tree while Arlecchino is a bent branch, an offshoot of Marcotte's abilities. And it's possible that Arlecchino hasn't been cut off yet as her own branch, so she must still be directly connected to Marcotte. Perhaps they even share a life force in some way. However, Princess Marcotte is repeatedly called a seed, not just in Fremene's character story, but in her own story in the Snow-Winged Goose books. Oh, I'm sorry, did I not mention that she has a full-length story in-game? That's my bad. She does, and it's hidden in this collection of fairy tales, and it's really weird. So Marcotte was apparently born in the crab claw, but never put down roots, which in the context of this master-servant vampire relationship might imply that she doesn't manifest her own abilities, she only seeds new vampires. But basically, in the story, her father, the king, wants her to sprout and grow into pretty flowers, which I think means he wants her to grow up, but she outright refuses. And then the book goes, "The king was shocked by his daughter's plans. What was wrong with pretty flowers, he thought. Wasn't he a pretty flower? And what if his daughter one day decided to set down those roots and grow an even prettier garland than his? That would be terrible." But he only felt this way because he was ashamed of not being as pretty as he wanted to be. And this is such a weird passage, but okay, if we think about this as the previous knave, the one that Arlecchino replaced, then perhaps this knave didn't want to be replaced. So she locked Marcotte in a golden box. Marcotte managed to escape and then sailed away on a crab claw ship. Now I kind of wonder if in this case the golden box is locking her away in a tower or a room, kind of like the one that Fremene says she stares out the window of. And if she then got bored and full of wanderlust and decided to mosey on over to Fontaine where Fremene found her and hid her, hoping that Father wouldn't find out she was here. But obviously Father does find out and she wants Linny to become the next Father, the next vampire thrall. Maybe Marcotte lost her real father once upon a time and has just been making replacements over and over again, and the quest is going to be about Linny, Lynette, and Fremene teaching her about what it means to be a family. Or maybe Marcotte is a little spirit of a little girl that lives inside Arlecchino as a kind of vampiric parasite, along with all these other little fairies that may or may not be the souls of the previous knaves. I don't know, the possibilities are endless. I gotta go and tend to the other theories I'm cooking, so thanks for watching. See you later, bye!